It's Sunday. You're listening to Real Radio. You know what time it is? 7. So that means it's time for It's Only Money here on Real Radio 104.1. I'm Ryan from the Monsters, and I'm not here alone. No. I am here with legendary financial advisor Scott Brown of Edgewater Family Wealth and his right-hand man, Tammy, also of Edgewater Family Wealth. And we are here to bring you all that hot financial talk that you just wake up for with your mimosas as you're getting ready for brunch. That's what I'm assuming. And obviously, I'm having a good morning. Good morning, fellas. How are y'all doing?
Good morning. Doing great.
That was an amazing intro. It made me really want to go to, I feel like there should be a brunch laid out here with mimosas. And,
we can make that happen one day.
Well, all right. I look forward to that.
The morning mimosa financial talk. It's got legs.
Hey, listen, the drunker you get, the smarter I sound. So that's all good.
The heavier the accent on my side.
Some of my best financial decisions are not made while drinking. Don't drink and make financial decisions. That is not the advice that we give.
I think that's a show. We should do drunk finance. In that drunk history?
Oh, there's our social media thing we've been looking for.
Yeah, we're going to do drunk financial advisor.
Oh, no one steal that.
Somebody asks us a question, we take a drink, we answer the question. Somebody asks another. Then we're sloshed by the fourth or fifth question. So Lord only knows what'll come out of my mouth.
Absolutely. Now, what kind of drink are we talking about? Just so I know how deep it's gonna be.
I mean, what's your normal drink of choice, Tammy?
Gin or vodka?
He's Russian.
I know.
What kind of question was that?
I wanted to see if he would just give a stereotypical. I would hope he.
Well, he said gin first, just to kind of pretend like it was gin.
Yeah. But isn't gin just vodka with like juniper berries? Like it's the same kind of root of alcohol.
Well, it gets to a point where it doesn't matter.
You're absolutely correct, Scott. Your drink of choice?
It's bourbon all day long.
You guys are stereotypical.
Yeah, we are. A Southern guy drinking bourbon and a Russian drinking vodka. Yeah. This makes sense.
Yep, and I drink PBR because I'm poor.
Well, let's try to fix that in this show.
Yeah, well, I do better and better. I straight up I do listen to what you say because for me this is just my free financial advice show, and it is for our listeners as well. But I don't know how many of the listeners actually pay close attention to what you say. And the moves that I make around, I do find that I make better financial decisions overall.
Yeah, I think hopefully if this show does nothing else, it slows people down. It's like as they say with a good quarterback, the game slows down and they see the field better. People are so inundated with information. I mean, if you Google financial anything, you'll get 7,000 things and 6,900 of them are just nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
But how would you know if that's not if you told me to look up something on nuclear fusion, I wouldn't know what was real and what wasn't real, right? So we need to be able to on this show say, look, slow down. What makes sense? And what makes sense usually is the right way to go. If somebody says, here's a way to get rich quickly, your mind should instantly say, I don't really think that's a thing, right? Short of lottery winnings, which usually leads to somebody getting murdered and bankruptcy. So you don't really want to take that path if you have a choice. Is getting rich slowly is the way to go. And many people have done that, right? So it's a proven path. Whatever the get rich quick thing you're being presented is not a proven path. I can promise you that. You'd be the first one to do this and get rich, or you wouldn't get rich, which is the more likely outcome. So what I hope this show does is it slows the game down for people and they can say, yeah, I could take the 10 grand I worked hard to save and I could put it in a meme stock or in cryptocurrency and maybe it'll turn into 20 in a week, right? You could have that conversation with yourself, or you could say, which is a cool conversation to think about. Mm-hmm. You're certainly going to get the dopamine fire in your brain you're looking for.
Yeah, you do.
Right? But short of that, what you could say to yourself is, I could take this 10 grand and I could keep adding that $200 a month or that $300 a month. And if I earn 6 or 7%, I know that that's going to double every 10 years. And if I live 40 more years, that means it's going to double 4 more times, which means I'm likely to take that 10 grand, save $200, $300, $400 a month and have $1 million when I retire. Now that's not interesting. You don't get a dopamine fire from it. Nobody's bragging about it. You cannot believe the compounding interest I'm going to get over the next 40 years.
That's the topic there.
That's the topic at a cocktail party,
That's how I
right?
pick up ladies.
People are going to walk away from you, I promise. But the truth of the matter is that's why it works, because it's a solution you can follow. It's a solution you can understand, and it's a solution that has proven results.
Absolutely. It's just not sexy.
It ain't.
It's never gonna be.
You can't pick up the ladies that way. I'm telling you right now.
No yacht.
No, but it's. I think about it like this. Like you've said on our last show that like there's essentially secret millionaires everywhere.
Sure.
And they're not. I'm talking like $40 million, but there's a lot of people running around with about $1 million, $2 million in change, just whether it be in stocks or in the bank. And I always can tell because I'm like, what kind of grill do you got? And then generally,
that's a dead giveaway.
It really is. But I also think about it in the way of my grandparents. My grandparents were not financially literate people necessarily. They did okay. My grandfather was in the military. He was in World War II. My grandmother never really worked, right? And of course, he had government pension, and they were in their 60s and 70s by the time I came around. And they get Social Security and things like that. But the thing that they did, and that they talked about it a lot when I was a kid, was they just invested the little bit throughout time. So when they were in their 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, they had a ton of money just from saving it as after my grandfather got out of the military, he worked and just put it away. And thank God he did that, because he passed away when I was 10 and my grandma lived for another 25 years.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I can see how that works. And I know everybody doesn't have that. And I think that's why I kind of have that drive in me where my ears perk up when I'm like, oh, because I've seen it can be done. And I was always able to get some sweet ass toys as a kid because they had money.
Because grandma will take care of you.
But it was never and I never knew their full financial situation. But I knew every now and then they're like, oh, there's a car. And I'm like, my grandpa never worked my entire life. And it just is. And one of my favorite things that I think about is this random commercial that I saw. And it was probably 10 years ago or whatever, but it was a waitress and she's just working in a diner, and outside there's this beautiful car, right? There's a beautiful blue car, old school. And there's these kids playing on it. And she's taking the order, and she looks up and she stops real quick. She looks out the door and she goes, hey, get away from my car. And they're like, that's your car? And she's like, yes, it is. And it's bam, financial commercial. And I was like, yeah, that's a good commercial.
Well, I mean, again, there's a lot of gems in there. And the first one that I kind of noticed you said, beyond the fact that they were just regular folks who saved, which is the theme of the show day in and day out, is the pension. We think about teachers get pensions, a lot of municipal folks who work for government, folks who are police officers, folks who are firefighters, folks who are public servants of some kind often get pensions. Teachers is the one that comes to mind. And I think about teachers that have said to me, well, all I have is my pension. And I think, what do you mean all you have is your pension? Because if you think about a teacher who we all agree are underpaid, and certainly in this day and age, just put up with crap on so many levels, it's ridiculous.
But they got summers off.
Yeah. Right. But that benefit of a pension is awesome. So again, they're often apologetic to me because I've retired teachers who are millionaires, several of them.
Public school teachers.
Public and private, both. But the private wages aren't much better, if at all, than public schools, to be honest with you, in my experience anyway. But going back to the pension benefit, because a lot of people listening to this may fall into that category where they have a pension benefit and they're, I just got this $35,000, $40,000 pension. Okay, well, let's think about that. If you didn't have that pension, how much money would you have to save to throw off $40,000 a year? And the answer is about $800,000, $900,000, $1 million, right? Depending on the interest rate. So even if it's $800,000, what you have coming in every month is the equivalent, or every year, of having $800,000 saved. So that's really the value, which is how insurance companies value things. What's the future value of this money? Or what's the current value of this income stream in this case? It's $800,000-$900,000. So you say, I only have this pension. No, what you have is $800,000 or $900,000 worth of income, right? So I think that stands out to me when somebody has a guaranteed income stream, whether it's Social Security or a pension. And when you think about teachers getting both, right? A lot of teachers retire with a nice income stream. And I know it's a hard job and it's getting harder every day, and we're losing really quality people, which is not what this show's about. But if a teacher can hang in, because somebody was just telling me about a teacher that wasn't sure they were going to make their 20 years. They were just fed up. And I said, oh, If they're close, hang in there because you want that pension. If you're military and you can get that 20 years, a lot of military folks have this. I have several friends who are retired military, several clients who are retired military that go on to second careers. But that value of that 30 or 40 or 50 or $60,000, some officers in the military retire with 60, 70, 80 grand in military benefits. That's worth millions of dollars to you. That'd be the equivalent of having a couple of $1 million in the bank, right? So first of all, if you're a pension person, a municipal worker, again, a firefighter, police officer, teacher, whatever it is, military, please don't underestimate the value of that pension. That has real powerful components to it. So I definitely want to put that out there. The second part is being a millionaire is interesting because you'd also be surprised how many people don't know they're millionaires. And that sounds weird, right? Like, how could you not know you're a millionaire?
Right.
Well, I've had people walk into my office and they're like, this is what we have. We have $383,000 in a 401k and $27,000 in our checking account. And, oh, yeah, we got the 50 grand in that CD over there and 20 grand in that annuity. And I do the math and I add it up and I'm like, oh, well, okay, congratulations, you're a millionaire. You're like, no, we're not. We only got 508. Well, you have a house and it's paid for, right? Oh, and you forgot about that piece of real estate that you own, that 3 acres you own up in Georgia. You're worth 1.125 or whatever and it's often, it used to shock me. Like, how do you not know this, right? Because they don't believe you. I've literally I can think of a client who I adore, some of my favorite people in the world. The first time I did that for them, I'm like, you're a millionaire. What are you talking? No, Scott, come on. Seriously. We have to talk serious here about our money. I'm being serious. You are millionaires, right? So that's funny to me and I'm sure your grandparents, what brought me to that discussion was I'm sure your grandparents fell into that category. They had real estate, they had some stuff, they had a little bit of cash, and they had a pension. Technically, they were millionaires, probably, at least the equivalent of such at that era.
Well, then I should have got way better toys. They're like,
now that you look back.
Yeah, looking back, you could have splurged for the Super Nintendo, Grandpa. No. Yeah. Well, if you were a secret millionaire, or if you want, hey, maybe you want to find out if you're a secret millionaire, Edgewater Family Wealth is where you want to go. EdgewaterFamilyWealth.com is the website, and working with Scott and Tammy, I do it. It's a lot of fun. You should do it as well. And we'll be right back with more It's Only Money here on Real Radio 104.1. Welcome back to It's Only Money here on Real Radio 104.1. I'm Ryan from the Monsters in the Morning, and I'm not alone. No, I am with Tammy and Scott Brown, Scott M. Brown, if you're nasty, from EdgewaterFamilyWealth.com. EdgewaterFamilyWealth.com is that website, and you can email us, EdgewaterFamilyWealth@RaymondJames.com.
So very few people know that song's about me, actually. So you just said that.
I assumed it was.
Yeah.
I assumed it was. And I'm assuming the M stands for money.
It does. That is weird. I was named that. It's just bizarre.
Some people are, they do have the name thing that does happen. I am a victim of that. My name is Ryan Holmes. In this town, there is a Ryan Holmes that does, real estate business. But my father was a realtor. And he was Frank Holmes, and so there, I do always think there's something to somebody if their name's like Singer and they're a singer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but there's some bad ones too, where people have these awful last names. That like I was trying to think of one. Like there was an attorney called something Creep.
It was Leach. It was the Leach firm. I'm like, well, that's not a good name.
Good. Yeah. You got to do something about that.
Yeah, there's one here in town that I believe it's pronounced Pius, and Pius, but it looks like Payus, and Payus. And I'm like, that's a pretty good attorney name. So,
well, it is probably accurate too.
It is.
Yeah.
When I was in school, I had a classmate. I'm kidding you not. His name was Doctor.
His name was Doctor.
Yeah, and he did not turn out to be a doctor.
Oh, it's much easier to spell than get one. Actually,
yeah,
just get an MD.
What's your name, Doctor? What do you do? Accountant.
You can call. Well, you would correct people. You call me Doctor.
Yeah.
You have an MD? No, but call me Doctor.
I look, there's no better way though than to go around, meet people and be like, yeah, I'm a doctor.
Yeah.
And then you date somebody and then they're like, I thought you said you were a doctor. I am. I'm of the Maryland doctors. Weird thing that people do now. Like, I'm sure the first person who did it was hilarious. But millennials will do this move where they'll give their kid the middle name Danger.
Okay.
And I literally know 2 people that have done it, and it's like just so they can go. Their kid, it was so funny. My kid says, "Danger is my middle name." No, really, it is.
Oh, man.
Stop it.
I kind of like dumb jokes like that though, because my dad was real good at dad jokes. You
Yeah.
know, like he's just a walking dad joke, and he would do this move. He'd go to like a bar or something to a lady, and you're like, "You want to see my pride and joy?" And he'd pull out his wallet, and it was 2 tiny pictures of Pride, the washing detergent, and Joy, the dishwashing stuff. And I'm like,
That is the daddest of all dad jokes.
and it was like, and at the time I was like, Dad, but now I'm like, that's pretty funny.
Yeah,
Like,
pretty awesome.
I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, he was the king of dad jokes, apparently.
It is. But my dad, I would say, is that I talk about my grandparents, how they were like, financially sound. My dad was as a businessman, and he was always looking how to make money real fast.
Yeah.
He wasn't like a slow saver kind of guy, and
Right.
it would kind of bite him. So I am wary of that kind of stuff,
Sure.
like especially those like get rich quick books where they promise that you're going to make money. But for me, I goofed off a lot when I was like in my 20s, right? Like I was a bartender. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Like I was in college. I did a lot of fun.
As you should.
Didn't really think about saving at all.
Right.
And now that I'm in my 30s, I'm like, oh God, like am I on the right track? Like, is it even possible for me to catch up to where I'm quote unquote supposed to be? And that's what keeps me up at night now. Like that's that like wake up in the middle of the night, like I don't have kids. Am I going to be able to retire and be able to take care of myself? Like, is there a proper track that I'm supposed to be on right now? And am I on it?
No, seriously, Scott.
No, really, Scott.
Don't tell me, really.
This is just me venting and confiding.
No. First of all, studies show that people ages 25 to 49, which you certainly fall into, it's a broad category, of course, but they don't feel on track. And I think the first part of the answer is that's okay. There are certainly days when I don't feel on track about one thing or another. And you're running a business, you have employees. Well, are we on track? Is the company on track? Is Scott on track? Is the business on track? Is the market on track? The answer to that's half the time. But being on track, what does that even mean, right? So if you limit a definition to some very specific number or savings amount, that's where people, I think, get in trouble, because then they realize, they say, well, I'm not on track because I'm not doing this. And then if they're not on track, then what's the point, right? That's how the cynicism starts to creep in, and they start to become a little bitter. I'm not on track, so therefore I just won't do anything. I'll show them. I'll show them I'm not on track, and that's clearly someone else's fault. So I'll show them by not doing anything about it. Right?
I can't not be on track if I never get on the track in the first place.
Yeah, that thing, right? So I think that's a dangerous game you're playing with yourself, because you're trying to convince yourself that it's really not my fault that I'm quote unquote not. There's no track. Everybody's got a different track. And the track you're on today may not be the track you're on tomorrow, but you need to get on a track. You need to get on a train and start moving. And I don't care how slow you move. I don't care how deliberate you are. I don't care if you want to be aggressive or you want to be conservative or some combination thereof. I don't care if you want to drive Uber and save the extra money. I don't care if you want to invest in boring old bonds that pay you a set interest rate or CDs. I don't care if you want to start a side hustle. I don't care if you want to flip real estate. I don't care if you want to buy real estate and hold it. I don't care. Those are all different tracks, and none of them are right and none of them are wrong. And here's, again, this is, if you could see me, my fist starts to ball because this makes me mad, is that people will tell you're on the wrong track. Oh, you're doing that, Tammy? You're doing that thing? You're in a 401. Oh, you're in a 401k. Aren't you brilliant, Ryan? Why are you doing that? You might as well.
Idiot.
Yeah. Why don't you clip coupons? Right? I mean, stop it. Shut up. I'm doing my thing. You do your thing and I'll do my thing. Right? It's so aggravating, because I also know financial advisors that if the client walks in and they're like, hey, I got a 401k and I've got 3 rental properties. You got 3 rental properties. What do you just like to fix toilets? They get this attitude. And the reason they're getting the attitude is because they know the rental properties money they're never going to have, right? Well, if I can't have it, then it sucks, right? That's the advisor. A lot of advisors have that. If not all, again, I always try to say, look, there's a lot of great advisors in this town, and I know a lot of them. But there are also some that have that attitude, right? If they can't make money off of it, it's a bad thing. That's not what an advisor's job is. They should say, congratulations for diversifying. Talk to me about the income stream. What does that mean to you 20 years from now? What do we have to do on our side to supplement that and that kind of conversation? And I also think that feeds into the idea. We know studies tell us that millennials, what's the age group for millennials? You're one, right, Ryan?
I believe it goes from 1981 to 2001.
Okay.
Does it cross the 2000?
Yes.
So what's the oldest millennial right now?
The
20?
oldest millennial would be born 1980, 81.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so that makes them, and they're, you guys are both millennials.
They'd be in
right?
their,
Like
the
41
Mm.
oldest
maybe?
millennial is like 41.
41. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So that group has a mistrust for their parents' advisor, if that makes sense, on average. So if if I was your dad's advisor, your nature, your inclination is to mistrust me, right? Because you've heard, and sometimes rightfully so, that advisors just sell products. They're really just the guy I just described who poo-poos the real estate because they can't get paid on it.
Mm.
And that person does deserve the feelings that you have, right? But that's not every advisor, and that's not an advisor's role. An advisor's role is to guide, to be a partner. It's not about a printout or a hot stock or any of that crap. It's about being a good partner. And if the advisor's been a good partner to your parents, it's likely they will continue to be a good partner to you over the long haul. But that, on average, young people are mistrustful of financial advisors, especially the advisors of their parents. And I've seen it firsthand. I've seen the adult children of clients of mine come in. They oftentimes have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. They're, once they realize how wonderful I am, of course, it goes away quickly. But in all seriousness, they do come in a little skeptical, and I have to overcome. Look, that's not who we are. We don't sell products. We're just here to be a teammate, guide you, tax implications, yada 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 yada. So, if you're out there and you're thinking, I don't trust financial advisors. My parents' guy is a little creepy, or the person's been unfair. I don't feel like the returns have been very good, or okay, those are fair feelings to have, but don't let them get in the way of you digging into it and seeing if that's true, right? And if it is true, then you make a change. If it's not true, then that maybe is a relationship you want to continue.
I think we don't trust the financial advisor because, two reasons. One was I talked about before, where on TV there seemed to be no rules when it came to like financial people on TV in the 80s. Like there was I feel like it was like an Asian dude, bikini models behind him. He's on a boat, and he's like, "I can make you money." And then there's question mark suit man.
Yep, I saw that guy in the airport once, and he was wearing.
Oh yeah,
suit.
he's still out there doing that thing. He's a little different. I found out later he's like government get secret government money or whatever. But there was like a lot of those, and my parents bought books, and would buy all these books, and if I think they would have taken that money, invested it properly, they would have more money. It just seems like, for me as a millennial, it always seemed like there's an air of charlatanism in that world.
I think that's totally fair.
But that's why talking to you and doing 30-something episodes at this point, it was kind of eye-opening in a really weird, sad way, that you have a job. And your job is to make sure people can retire and to check on their finances, and you're good at money, where the average person is not. And it's all the various rules and tax implications and stuff that like I would have no idea. I could stumble through. I'm definitely not going to help myself by doing that. So it's been interesting to see it from a different angle. But yeah, I guess there is a general mistrust for the industry, because when I think of financial advisors, I don't think cool dirt bike jumping motorcycle guy like you. I think big puffy leather chairs that kind of stink in a like a boring office that I had to sit in when I was like 5.
Large dark wood paneling.
And I don't want that. I don't
Yeah.
want that guy. And he's an old man.
Yep.
A white shirt that's kind of yellow stained.
Yep.
Like that.
It's got coffee all over
Yeah,
it.
coffee breath. You know,
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
That is the mental image until I met you. I had of financial people. When I don't know how much time we have. When they actually pitched me doing this show, I was a little bit hesitant, and I was like, I don't really know if that's a good fit for me. And then they gave me a little bit of info about you, but I didn't know what you look like at all. So they're like, Scott's going to come in and meet with you today. I'm like, okay, cool. And he'll be down in the lobby. So I go down in the lobby a little bit early. I had to go get something from my car, and I see the oldest white man like sitting at one of the tables in the lobby, like clearly waiting for somebody. And I'm like, oh no, I was so correct. And he had like a disheveled suit on and like kind of like crazy hair. And I'm like, oh, this is what we're going to be. And then,
gonna be good.
And then so when they're like, oh, come down and meet Scott. I'm like, I don't want to.
I
want to do that.
I don't feel good.
And then I met you and I was like, oh, okay, cool. I've been totally wrong about this the whole time.
Well, I'm glad that I didn't fit the cliche that you had inside of your head. But yeah, I mean, I think if the one prevailing theme I think in this show, hopefully, is that absolutes are silly. You know, and we can talk about this when we come back. But I think if you have this absolute view of one thing, whether it's financial or otherwise, you're going to head down the wrong road.
All right. And we'll be right back with the really awesome Glad I Did It. It's Only Money here on Real Radio 104.1. Welcome back to It's Only Money here on Real Radio 104.1. I hope you are having an absolutely lovely day. Maybe some absolute in your OJ, if you know what I mean. But Scott says he does not like absolutes as we were going to break. And Scott, when it comes to financial advice and absolutes, you said not a fan. Why is that?
Not a fan of do it this way only or do it that way. This is good or this is bad. This product is good. Mutual funds are good. No, mutual funds are bad. Annuities are good. No, annuities are bad. This stock is good. This stock is. These are silly conversations that make no sense, right? I mean, products are just products. And sometimes a life insurance policy of this type or that type makes sense. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes an annuity makes sense. Most of the time, I would argue it doesn't. Sometimes a mutual fund works. Sometimes buying straight up stocks. There are so many, again, marrying this one way of doing something. I only do real estate. Okay. I mean, not to say it couldn't work, but maybe not the smartest thing, because sometimes real estate's good and sometimes it's not so good. Sometimes it's not so liquid, right? So you might say, well, maybe I need a little more money over here. I tell the story of, and I've told it many times, but it bears repeating, is entrepreneurs are bad about this. There was a book written by a guy by the name, I believe his name is Michael Gerber, wrote a book called The E-Myth, which I think is the best book ever written on being an entrepreneur. So if there's any entrepreneurs out there listening, get yourself that book. It'll be a huge help to you as you move forward. But entrepreneurs sometimes are victims of their own success because they have an absolute belief in what they're doing, which makes sense, right? Because they're small business people and they've been successful. And I've told the story many times about the guy who sold boat parts. I'll never forget as long as I live. I had a client who had a business across the street from his, and for years I'd go see that client. And while I was there, like the industrious little advisor I was becoming in my 20s, I would go over and bug this poor guy. I'd say, hey, I want to be your financial advisor. And back then, Ryan, you could put $2,000 in an IRA. And I'd say, why don't you give me $2,000 for an IRA? And he'd laugh at me and get out of here, kid. What are you doing kind of thing. And eventually one day I went in and bugged him. He said, listen, I sell boat screws. And I can buy this boat screw for 30 cents and sell it to boat owners for $2 all day long. Can you beat that? Right? So we're talking about a 400 or 500% return on your money, literally daily. And the answer, of course, was, no, I can't beat that. And then he said, run along, young man. Right? And this went on for years. And I would go and I'd bug him because I was stupid and needed business and had a young family, and being told no was just a daily occurrence. And one day I went to cross the street and the boat store wasn't there anymore. The boat screw salesman was gone. And what happened to the boat screw guy was that he got Amazoned. So he could no longer buy a boat screw for 30 cents and sell it for $2. He could buy a boat screw for 30 cents and sell it for 32 cents. And that wasn't going to cut it anymore. My point is, he was a victim of his own success. He was so good at this and it was so profitable that he really didn't take time to look around and say, what if? He had an absolute view of his business. He had an absolute view of his abilities and an absolute view of his ability to be very profitable. So there was no need to deal with the little punk that was walking in trying to put him in an IRA or get him to save in other more liquid, albeit less prosperous places. Had he done what I had asked him to do over the last 10 or 15 years, or however many long I did this, at least when Amazon came along and did what they did, he would have had this other bucket of money to get him through to the next thing. I suspect he didn't. I don't know actually for sure that that's true, but I suspect he didn't seem interested in saving. He didn't seem interested in doing long-term retirement planning. He just wanted to sell boat screws, and I get it. And again, that's why I wrote the book, to say I wouldn't have made that guy rich. Boat screws were making that guy rich. But what I could have done for him was help him squirrel some of that away so that at that moment when that absolute idea wasn't absolute, he would have had something to fall back on to say, all right, well, yeah, I'm going out of business because of Amazon, but I got 200 grand in the bank. So that'll give me 3 or 4 months to come up with a new idea and reinvest in a new business of one kind or another. So I think for me, that's why absolutes annoy me, because a client will come in and say, my brother said I shouldn't do this thing because he does that thing. Well, who cares what he does? Let him do what he does. If he sells real estate, or he buys real estate, or he rents real estate, or he flips real estate, or he's into, he buys forests so that they can harvest the pine, let him do that, right? You're doing this and it's working for you. So that's because oftentimes people get derailed by that because, my brother's pretty smart. I should listen to him, and I feel bad that he doesn't approve of what I'm doing. Do your own thing. Do you, as the kids say these days.
I was gonna say we do that. I'm an old man who still thinks he's a kid, and I just enjoy that story because I think about diversification seems important, but now I'm afraid to say you should absolutely diversify, right?
I think, there's been, again, I'm always quoting these obscure studies, but I read this stuff a lot, and I think there's been a couple of studies recently that says the average multimillionaire has 4 or 5 sources of income, meaning they might own real estate. They may have stocks and bonds. They may have a business that provides them. They may have bought into a limited partnership of some kind that owns apartment buildings. Who knows what they did, right? But they've got 4 or 5. So people would say, well, if you're diversifying, it means you don't know what to do. No, I know what to do, but I'm just checking myself. I'm making sure, in case I'm not there's that word again, I'm not absolutely correct, then these other 4 things or these other 3 things will back me up or take care of me. And to that point, when you think about venture, we all hear about private equity or venture capital.
Yeah.
These are sexy terms. There are shows on HBO about these people that do all these fancy things. But the truth of the matter is, if you look at venture capital firms and private equity firms, they'll probably do 20 deals a year, right? And 7 of them will be completely bankrupt. They know that going in. They know that 30%, 40% of the deals they do are likely to go belly up. Well, why in the world would you do that, right? Because they also know that 4 or 5 more are going to do okay. 2 or 3 are going to do a little better than okay. And 2 of them are going to be 100x deals that make up for the 5 or 6 that went out of business. So even the quote unquote MBAs, Harvard, Yale, whatever it is, people that run these private products, private equity, the big money, as they like to say, these people are still diversifying and hedging their bets because they know they can't be absolutely sure that this technology business is the technology business. They know if they buy enough of them, 2 of them are going to be like Amazon or like, Google or a Microsoft or an Apple. And some of them are going to be pets.com.
I think of it like this is gonna be the nerdiest reference, but I think of it like when you're building an RPG character for like a Dungeons and Dragons or like a video game, because like you have different stats that you put in. So like you usually get presented like 6 or 7 stats. So you got strength, intelligence, dexterity, health points, things like that. And if you load up, like if you're like, okay, well, obviously I want a super strong character that can just smash goblins, and you put all your strength in there, but then you got 3 hit points, you're going down fast. You got to you got to stick stuff where it needs to go to kind of balance out the kind of play that you want to do. That's what's cool about RPGs is like, okay, well, I want to play this way, so I put my stats this way. So I'm like an archer instead of like a super strong man. It seems to be like that with financial world as well, where it's like, okay, I put my stats here on how risky I want to be and what kind of like so-called terrain I'm about to go through, and I set myself up that way. So my way of playing, quote unquote, the financial RPG isn't going to be the same way as somebody else. They both might work, but it depends on your style of play. Is that kind of what you're saying?
100%.
Through my super nerdy reference?
Yeah, that was, and first of all, you're right. That's the nerdiest reference I've ever heard in my life. Once you start now, well, at least, but the good news is we're attracting the Dungeons and Dragons crowd into the show. But no, it's absolutely do it the way that makes you comfortable. There is no right or wrong. The only wrong is not doing anything. And that's the part that aggravates me when, again, sometimes it'll be a client will come in and somebody will get in their ear.
No, you got the fist again, Scott.
It makes me angry. I'm going to fight somebody. It's so detrimental to that person's psyche because it's emotional, right? Money's very emotional. When somebody tells you you're doing it wrong, even though it's been working for 20 years, you're like, I'm doing it wrong. That's a smart person. I should maybe. Then they come in and talk to me, and they're like, my nephew said, well, your 18-year-old nephew who borrows money from you every week told you you're doing it wrong. I mean, that's the hilarity to me is oftentimes somebody, and I can be that guy sometimes, where they say, hey, so-and-so told me I should do this instead of what I'm doing. And I'm like, are they rich? Well, no. Then why are you listening to them?
I mean, that's exactly why every crypto bro is suddenly real quiet right now.
Oh,
you notice that? Like I used to hear crypto this, crypto that, NFT, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, crickets. You know?
The mob is dead, at least for the moment. Now, if it bounces 10 or 15%, they'll claim, I told you so.
No.
Yeah, they don't know.
I was up in like New York last week, and it was all about that. Everybody's asking me, oh, he's the guy, he works in the industry. Let's ask him about this coin and that coin. I'm like, no coin. No coin. Yeah, no coin.
I use the no coin.
Yeah. No coin.
There is no coin. It's there is no spoon from the Matrix. It's like there is no coin. Just keep going. I get that people made money fast in one way, but yeah, you had a lot of people that really had no idea what they're talking about, telling you like you need to do this. If you're not in this right now, you're insane. And but they're telling you to do it when it's at 36,000. And I think the people have made their money at that point.
Yeah, the early adopters of stuff like that are the ones that make money. I mean, it's and that's very few people. There's very few people that get into that category. But when we come back, let's talk about the millennials and the $53 trillion they're about to inherit.
Right, like right now?
Tomorrow.
We'll be right back with more It's Only Money here on Real Radio 104.1. Welcome back to It's Only Money here on Real Radio 104.1. I'm Ryan Holmes from the Monsters. And with me, of course, I have Scott Money Brown from Edgewater Family Wealth. EdgewaterFamilyWealth.com is the website. And Tammy is here as well. And I hope that really catches on, Scott. I hope people call you Scott Money Brown from now on. What is the M?
Martin.
For? Martin.
You know you're in trouble from my mom if you heard Martin. That was your cue to run the other way.
Usually it's the full name. Right?
Yeah, you hear the full name.
Oh,
There's a whooping coming.
Yeah, I do remember those days of like, oh, the old Ryan Brian Holmes get in his house right now. It's like, cool. But now I'm not. Was gonna, but now I'm not. But Scott, you just gave me the best news before we went to break.
Yeah.
Which is I'm gonna inherit $58 trillion is what I heard.
Yeah, it's actually 53 trillion. So
53 trillion.
Yeah. So
awesome.
Still a big number.
You're welcome. Yeah, I don't know what you're gonna do with all that money, but so I believe it's the Gen X and Millennials, maybe even Gen Y's in this number too, but that the amount of wealth being transferred across the country over the next 20 to 25 years is about $53 trillion. And I got news for you. You people ain't ready for it. You ain't ready to get that kind of money.
No, I'm not.
We're not.
Yeah. So we got to figure out how we educate the entire country of millennials, Gen X and Gen Ys on how to deal with inherited money. Because I will tell you,
I'm going rims.
You can put rims on your
I'm lifted truck with rims almost immediately.
You're going to get the Carolina, what do they call that? The Carolina Drift?
Yeah.
Where it's jacked up the wrong way.
Yeah, it's jacked up where the front is down and the rear is up.
Yeah, it's the weirdest looking.
How do you drive with that?
They do
awesomely.
Yeah. Now talk about something the ladies like. It's the Carolina Drift.
All right.
And I have no idea how I know that, by the way.
Mm.
But yeah, so I find that people who inherit money, not again, no absolutes, not always, but quite frequently don't do well with said money. And the problem is if you earn money, if you've collected money over your life, while you've been collecting it, you've been learning valuable lessons about A, how to collect it, and B, how to maintain it, what's important, what's not important. And oftentimes I find people who inherit money struggle with their priorities, like what's important to do, who's it important to partner with, where is it important to spend money, and where is it important not to spend money. And they spend an inordinate amount of time trying to save nickels while quarters fly over their head. And what I mean by that is they'll often, try to save on fees. I don't want to pay any fees, and I don't want to pay an accountant, and I don't want to pay a financial advisor, and I don't want to have a lawyer. Meanwhile, they inherit lots and lots of money, and then these professionals weren't involved, and something occurs. Something happened that the lawyer could have foreseen and written a contract to avoid, or built a trust to avoid, or to protect them from lawsuits. Maybe the financial advisor who's isn't as emotionally invested would have been more diligent in managing the money in terms of when to buy and when to sell and the tax implications. But and the accountant, maybe they didn't want to pay to get their tax return fund. Meanwhile, there was $30,000 worth of deductions they missed out. There's so many parts to this. And this isn't just an ad for using financial professionals, but it's to say that if you haven't accumulated the money yourself, and historically you've not accumulated money, meaning you literally had $100 in the bank when you got 2 million, you're not equipped for that. I don't care what you say or what you think. You're not equipped to be the millionaire yet. The other people who acquired it over time developed into millionaires. Does that make sense?
1000%. That's how I feel like with my mom. Like when I know she's always talking about, my mom's like the lady who like will give me the exact number of how much money she has.
Yeah.
And she's like, this is all going to go to you. And it's terrifying because she knows all the stuff it took to get there, for whether the tax stuff and getting the lawyer, the trust. And I have zero idea. And so the thought of the risk of just almost immediately losing it is real.
Yeah, and it freezes people. So it goes back to the earlier discussion we were having about taking action, right? So you say, well, I had $100 yesterday, now I have 2 million today.
Mm-hmm.
You're still the $100 person.
Yes.
Right? Your skill set is still managing the $100 to get to the end of the week.
I've seen it ruin people, Scott.
Oh, it destroys people. And I
No.
could tell you some horror stories about what I've seen. But the biggest thing it does to nice people, well-intended people, smart people, is it freezes them. Because now they're like, oh, I don't really know how this money got here. I don't know if I lose it. I don't know how to get it back. I don't know how it was accumulated. Now, they'll say they do oftentimes because pride gets in the way. But they don't. And then they won't seek guidance because in their minds, the guidance costs money, right? I got to pay an advisor. I got to pay an accountant. But people who do those things, which is some of them, still have the money or more of it 10 or 20 years later. On average, people who don't do those things don't have the money 3 years later. Those are the statistics. So again, does that mean frivolously spend money on people who are out to get you? No. And vet people, know who you're dealing with, understand the dynamics of the relationship. All these things are true. But what happens to inherited money a lot of times is people freeze, they make bad decisions, and then they avoid decisions for a while. And what I've noticed with them is then they'll make a rash decision. Somebody will come up and say, well, you're just going to leave that money in the bank for, you've been left there in 3 years. It didn't do anything for you. Why don't you invest in my, dog washing company or my trucking company or my whatever company? Well, what's your experience in these businesses? Have you built them before and ever turned a profit? Well, no, but I'm your buddy. You know me, I'm Scott. I can run a trucking company. Do you know how to drive it? No, I don't know how to drive a truck. But clearly you can't leave your money in the bank, right? So these, and I use that example because I know somebody that happened to, right? And talk about ripping families apart. I can give you a couple of examples where people inherited money, some cases $4, $5, $6 million, and within 2 or 3 years, the family members who never really spent a lot of time with the person now are suddenly totally in love with that family member, and 4 or 5 years later, there's no money. to speak of. And it went a variety of places, and they're all pointing fingers at each other. At the end of the day, they were all complicit. They all gathered together to ruin what could have been a wonderful situation. And OPS, now they all hate each other. So, that's a cliche description, but it's a cliche for a reason because it happens very frequently.
Now, with this $53 trillion transfer of wealth, what are the tax implications on that? Like, are you talking mostly like somebody passes away? So when you just get inherited money, is it taxed to you? Is it taxed to that person? How is that going to do? And is it automatic, or do you got a plan for that? You say, dear government, I have just received this much money. Please tax me.
Yes. Well, you don't have to do that. I promise you. They're well prepared for that opportunity. So it depends. And, we have estate taxes in this country, but there are higher levels on average. If you inherit anything less than $5 or $6 million right now, it's not going to be an issue for you. So there are not major tax implications unless we're talking about qualified money. And what I mean by qualified money is like IRAs or 401ks. Going back to our earlier discussion, if you have an old 401k, like a clients often do, where they have 200 grand or 300 grand or some decent number in a plan that was where they used to work. They used to work at Martin Marietta. They used to work at Disney. They pass away. Whoever inherits that, if it's not the spouse, now the spouse is good to go. They still have to take the money out at some point and pay taxes on it, but not immediately. If I were your father and I passed away and left you as a son, $500,000 in an IRA, then it would become your what they call a beneficiary IRA, and you would have 10 years to take that money out and pay tax. Current legislation is you would have 10 years to take that money out and pay taxes on it. You could do it all at once. You could do it over 10 years. You could do it however you want. But they want it taken out and they want to tax it because I never pay taxes on it as your father, right? So if it's qualified money, there is some taxability to it. We have something called step up in cost basis, which is if I owned a bunch of stocks, but they weren't qualified, they were just in a regular old brokerage account, and I had bought Microsoft way back in the day at $10, and now it's $200, and the 50 grand I put in it's now 5 million. You actually get a step up in cost basis to the day I die. So there are no tax implications currently on that example, right? So that's why, again, going back to inherited wealth, why you need someone to talk to, especially if it's a substantial amount of money that's either in real estate or stocks, or is it qualified? Is it not qualified? Because you can in fact, I had a client come to me about 3 months ago. She came to me, had a former advisor. To be fair, I'm not sure she always listened to that advisor, wanted to use me. Her father had passed away and left her some money. And he had some stocks, and she made a decision to do this, that, or the other, didn't step up the cost basis, ended up paying $50,000-$60,000 in taxes she didn't need to pay. Right? And all that would have been a conversation. Don't do this, right? But instead, she froze, wasn't sure who to talk to, who to trust, kind of made her own decision to pay 50 grand she didn't need to pay.
Would you say if she didn't know who to talk to or who to trust, she should have contacted Edgewater Family Wealth way sooner?
I think that's a fair statement.
And yeah, I think so too. So if you're out there, don't freeze, unfreeze, warm up to Edgewater Family Wealth. Then EdgewaterFamilyWealth.com is that website. If you want to get a hold of Scott, you can email him, EdgewaterFamilyWealth@RaymondJames.com. If you want to check out the Fin Talks with Tammy, those are on that website as well. And we're here every Sunday on Real Radio 104.1. Scott, Tammy, have a great
Sunday.
Have a great Sunday.
Likewise.
We'll be back next Sunday with more It's Only Money on Real Radio 104.1.
Yeah, and clearly people are rich, right? Or wealthy. You don't have to be rich. I like the term wealthy better. I mean, to rich reminds me of like the Monopoly guy or something. But, there are people, there are regular people.
Now that guy I trust. You see the problem, Scott? You don't have a monocle.
Monocle is, now, if you can meet a guy with a monocle, I mean, like, I'm all in.
What was his financial advice? He said buy Park Place?
Where is that?
Where is that? I can't find it.
Tune in to It's Only Money with Scott Brown from Edgewater Family Wealth, Sunday mornings at 7 on Real Radio 104.1. Raymond James Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Edgewater Family Wealth is not a broker-dealer, is independent of RJFS.